What a wild show we have today. We have none other than the irrepressible Charlie Kirk for both segments. And you know what? America is going to be saved or lost. I think this is it. This is it, man. We cannot do 4 more years of $2 trillion a year of spending, 20 million people coming across our border. We're finding out a lot of them were out of the prisons. It's a weird Mad Max world out there, but we have a chance to stop it. You know what's going to stop it? There's 7 states called battleground states, 19 counties. They are the future of America. We've identified those 7 states, those 19 counties, and Charlie Kirk with his Turning Point Action teams are partnering with us. It's one of the reasons why I want him on the show today. And you can reserve your seat on the front lines of the great battle for America by going to thecouragetour.com. The Courage Tour. I said, Lord, what do we need now? It's courage. Thecouragetour.com. And reserve your seat. Sign up, reserve your seat. And by the way, make some kind of an offering or contribution. We're bringing the gospel, folks, to the 19 counties that are going to determine the future of America. There's 3,000 counties. 19 are the future. 50 states, 7 are the future. Bam, we're going where the gates of hell are located, and we're going to see God demonstrate his power. Go to thecouragetour.com, reserve your seat, and help support this effort to save America. And by all means, make sure that you check out Arizona, April 21st through 24th, Georgia on the 11th through the 13th. I just talked to Michigan today. Keep your eyes peeled. Revival's coming to a theater near you. Let's get into the program and let's welcome Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, thanks for fitting this in your schedule. Now, you just got done doing the Strong Church tour. Great, you had a great poster. Is it still up on the wall or did you take it down? Is it still there?
No, it's still here.
Good.
It's still here.
Great poster. Yeah. And I regret that I didn't ask you about it earlier. I should have. I wish I had, because I would have been there if I had just only.
Yes, no, it was an oversight. You're invited to all of our stuff, Lance.
Well,
so
if
you hear about it, you just appear.
Well, you know, I'm like Larry David. I said, hey, how come I wasn't invited? And then but Metaxas was invited. Anything Metaxas goes to, I should be able to go to. That's what I say.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, but listen, you gathered 1,900 pastors, and it has to be. I mean, this is what the RNC is supposed to do. I won't go there because you've succeeded in being able to make your point there at the RNC. And I don't know, someone told me that Mitch McConnell is stepped down today. Is that a rumor or is that a fact?
No, that's right. It's stepped down as leader, not as his Senate seat. It'll be effective in November. It's been a bad week for the mix. Bad week for the mix.
Oh, it's bad week for the mix.
McDaniel and McConnell.
And I was going to ask you something. The word Kirk, is that Scottish, though? Are you Scottish?
Yeah. Well, do you want? Yeah, of course. You want to know something even crazier? Strong Church is Charlie Kirk.
Oh, stop it! Strong Kirk is Charlie Kirk. I knew it. I knew it was some kind of a cosmic conspiracy here. With the Trumpmeister himself being a bit of a Scottish reformer, you guys are quite a team.
Well, we are rebels at heart, and we're always trying to fight the power. And it's funny, when we named our event Strong Church, I said to our team, why are you naming it after me? And they didn't get the joke.
Oh, come on. Now listen, this is really important. You're getting these pastors together. And the left is obsessed with Christian nationalists. The left is obsessed with us. I just wanted to leave us alone, but why are they obsessed with Christians?
Well, for a couple reasons. Donald Trump won 81% of the evangelical vote in 2016. He won 77% of it in 2020, and more evangelicals voted. There was just higher turnout across the board in 2020 than in 2016. So they know that if they can get a 3 to 4 point dip, if they can erode evangelical support just a little bit in Georgia, just a little bit in Wisconsin, just a little bit in Arizona, and lose by less, they hold on to the White House. And what we have seen with the pastors we're working with the churches that we are organizing, both through Turning Point Action and TPUSA Faith, is there is an unprecedented desire to take back this country, to have a check and balance on the tyranny and the nonsense that we're living through. And it's very simple. It should be Project 81, Lance. If we can get above 81%, there's almost no way Donald Trump loses. Let me say that again. If we can get above 81%, they know this. This is why they're doing Rob Reiner, Christian nationalism, David French, Russell Moore, that whole pack of losers.
And not only are they a pack of losers, but there must have been some satisfaction. I mean, bittersweet though it is, that Rob Reiner has this great rollout of all those talk shows where he's talking about the danger of Christian nationalism. But then on opening day, 85 theaters, they roll it out, and I think he made maybe $135 or something like that. Enough for lunch for one of the camera crew. I mean, the thing was an abysmal
not enough
flop.
For lunch for him, though. But that's a separate issue.
That's a separate subject, my friend. But I mean, Russell Moore. We have to start to talk about this guy's Christianity today. Can you believe Billy Graham would have the Billy Graham magazine would end up in the hands of a guy like Russell Moore, who is like a Judas to the church? I mean, he's the go-to guy on the left when they want to bash us.
He's also the intellectual or theological basis of these awful He Gets Us advertisements. It's important to remember that. He was the inspiration, at least the teacher behind a lot of that, a lot of connective tissue to Russell Moore. And let's talk about Billy Graham. Billy Graham was one of the greatest men of the 20th century. He doesn't get the credit he deserves for being called out as that. He was a faithful man. He was a courageous man. There is a lesser known sermon that I encourage people to find. It's Billy Graham. It's called Communism, Satan's Religion. He said that Christianity and communism cannot coexist. In fact, if we are to have Christianity in America, communism must be defeated. So Russell Moore is he's creating this very secular New Age style Christianity, very heavy emphasis on feelings, emphasis on trying to be nice and sweet to people. And I would love and I would relish the opportunity to discuss or debate Russell Moore, because he does not have a theological foot to stand on. I'm not saying I know the Bible better than Russell Moore. He knows it quite well, but he does not have any theological backing to say that Christians shouldn't care about their nation, that Christians should be indifferent to the massacring of children, to open borders, to an illegitimate, corrupt regime that is terrorizing our country, to the what's going on with the unborn and the abortion industry in this country. And Russell Moore is leading the charge towards Christian indifference, and you could call it this fake Christian neutrality.
Yeah, nothing like leading the charge towards apathy. It's kind of a confusion of metaphors, but it's the truth. These guys are trying to, it's like Tim Keller and Rick Warren. What's sad about it is these guys in one era had such great credibility. And then when they're put to the test of time, do you know, like, I won't mention the names because I don't want to constantly be bringing these guys up, but like so many of them quote Billy Graham. Billy Graham told me, stay out of politics. Well, Billy Graham was the flamethrower that brought America into a great awakening following World War II, because he articulated so clearly the threat of communism. And then he brought it home to the fact that either America repents and turns to Christ, or it's going to be godless atheism is going to be the executing finger of judgment. And you can't deny that was the cornerstone of what built the Billy Graham brand. Then when Reagan came along and Billy's on the Tonight Show and you're in an area where Mondale is, running, he dialed down the political rhetoric, because we weren't at that stark moment like 1860 where you have to make a decision. And so they quote him out of context. That's what drives me crazy. Now you're at a moment when you need courageous leadership, talk about abolition or stop Hitler now, and it's like, stay out of politics. Billy Graham told me, stay out of. It's like getting advice from Neville Chamberlain at the wrong time.
Well, that's right. And these guys, it's funny. You isolated it perfectly. They're insistent that the church do nothing. It's a call to action to just sit in the corner and obey. It's, hey, don't engage in politics. It doesn't matter if the country's falling apart. And this is an op. We must be very clear, Lance. It is an op. From Tim Alberta's book, The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory, to Rob Reiner's deal, to the constant repetition of Christian nationalism. They're trying to paint the faithful Christian patriots in this country as radical, as extremists, when in reality, we want a restoration of this, the U.S. Constitution. that we want the Constitution to be restored, that we want a government that is responsive to the people. We want a border. We want to say our children are off limits. And they do not want Christians involved in the public square, in the ecclesia.
No. This is so important. And so, listen, what you're saying is so important, because they are all over this. And people will get educated about this Christian national debate soon, so they better learn our side of the story. They're all about this dominionism. I mean, they salivate over the thought that you would dare to have an idea that you would leave that little church corner where they want you to stay in and get involved with the school system. But here's the reality. They're talking about these 7 mountains, and then I'll get thrown in there as a 7-mountain dominionist, architect. And I wrote to someone last night. They said journalists are after him because of his association with me over the 7 mountains. I said, you know what? I'm going to flip the thing around. I don't believe the 7 mountains is a theological formula for engaging culture. I think 7 mountains is a blueprint for how the left took over America and is taking it over a cliff and dismantling it. From education to corporations to media, yes, arts, entertainment, to their collusion with science and technology and big tech, to their weaponizing of the State Department, the intelligence community, and government. I'm taking the 7 mountains down, presenting it as, how did America get destroyed? You better show up in the cockpit or they'll crash this plane. That's how I'm going to start to present 7 mountains. I'm telling the Rolling Stones now what I'm doing so you guys can get a lead on it. But that's how I'm going to approach it.
Yeah, Rolling Stone magazine is quite something. No, but that's perfectly put, Lance. And we are called to be salt and light. Salt and light, in common, change the environments that they come in contact with. Salt and light does not conform. Salt and light are change agents. Salt and light, by definition, go into places that are not like how they are and transform it to something better. So the question ahead of the church right now is, are we going to just kind of sit idly by and be a spectator during the most consequential and monumental time for the country? The civilization is completely at stake, and they want the church to be obedient. And I could not think less of Russell Moore and David French. It's funny, with Rick Warren, I got in a texting exchange with him. It was very heated when Rick Warren comes out and posts this social media post where he uses the eulogy, or his eulogy, of Tim Keller, who I liked. Tim Keller. I don't think Tim Keller finished well. He was awful on politics, but some very good teaching that I liked from Tim Keller earlier in his life. And Rick Warren used his Facebook post eulogy where he came out and he effectively said, Tim Keller, who unlike other pastors refused to engage in politics and culture wars. And I texted Rick Warren. I said, what are you doing, man? You're the one that tells us to stop being political. And then you use the death of Tim Keller to be political.
Oh, come on. And you're the guy that pointed out to me today. He marched in a Black Lives Matter. Here's Rick Warren marching with Black Lives Matter, telling you, hey, don't get involved with politics. Next thing you know, he'll be showing up at Antifa rallies, pulling down statues. We got to get a hold of this guy.
And he tells us, don't be political, don't be political. And yet the moment there was this racial justice thing, has Rick Warren, here's a good question, because he says, I go there to pray for them. Okay, fine. And to minister. Have you been to a MAGA rally, Rick Warren? Have you?
And will he be on the Courage Tour? Will he have the courage to join us on the Courage Tour? No. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Charlie Kirk about this and other incendiary items. Don't miss it. I want to take a moment to talk about the volatile financial time that we're in. And I want you to empower yourself with knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. Visit lancewallnau.com/birch and get a free information kit. Consider discussing how to shift your 401k or your retirement account into a tax-sheltered gold and silver account. Why don't you go to lancewallnau.com/birch right now and take action for a secure future. Well, welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. We're getting our flamethrowers and our asbestos suits all together because we have Charlie Kirk with us. Charlie Kirk, who is the brave heart of the next generation, going up against the Longshanks, I'm sorry to say, of my generation, who are all who are literally just an obstruction to the progress of a great awakening. I believe the wrecking ball that Donald Trump represented to the spirit of political correctness is now the wrecking ball coming to the church mountain. I don't think people are going to come out of this season without having identified themselves as either being, it's kind of like the Revolutionary War. A third were for the Patriot cause, a third were against it, and a third were stuck in the middle trying to figure out how to avoid getting clobbered. So Project 81, tell us again, what is that, Charlie? What are we doing with Project 81?
Well, no, I mean, it's just kind of it's a working term of what at Turning Point Action and through our political vehicle, we want to try to have Donald Trump achieve more than 81% of the evangelical vote. In 2020, he won 77% of it. And we know how that all worked out. If you want to defeat voter fraud, I'm all for that. We have to secure our elections, Lance. Our elections are screwed up, but I will be focused on that more if we get above 81% of the evangelical vote. That's my focus.
All right.
Is that if we get to 82,
we're going to do it. Now, you got me convinced. You got me convinced that Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin.
We had this great meeting, Lance. That was a great meeting.
I'm telling you, and then I'm convinced also, I'm throwing Michigan in there because, Biden just he gives the gift that keeps on giving. So he screws up in places that creates opportunities. And the Courage Tour, which is partnering with Turning Point Action, is going to be going to all 7 swing states. I'm latching on to what Charlie's got going on in these states because Arizona, Georgia, we got April 21st through 24th. Mark it down. You and I are busy all the time, but if you can get there, I'm right in your backyard, Maricopa. We're out to get.
Oh, perfect.
Bam. We're out to hit. And we're targeting 19 counties that we believe are the low propensity, which I would say is the sleepy Christian, the one that's the most affected by the influences of the Russell Moores and then these other guys. We want to awaken them. So we're going to go there, make a loud noise, and bring them out. Georgia, 11th through the 13th. Now I have a question for you, Charlie. By the way, you can go to thecouragetour.com because we're putting all the speakers, we're gathering them together now. All of the transgressors are being numbered together. But I have a question for you. You said something, and I didn't get to hear the rest of the broadcast because it got, I don't know, AT&T, something happened. But you were saying how you were at Mar-a-Lago at this kind of this moment. It was surreal. There's Donald Trump and Bolsonaro, and you're having a celebration. It looked, and then Mike Pence comes along very pensively with news on COVID and goes, and you're saying, and you created this scene for me that like the great Gatsby kind of gathering at Mar-a-Lago. And then you said, but then COVID, what are they cooking up now? You know something ominous. And then it's like a radio show. I was in suspense, so I thought I got to ask you live. What did you say after that?
Oh, but hey, I'm doing my job then, Lance, if you're remembering it with that great detail. So let me just kind of repeat it for your viewers. I was at what was called the last celebration before COVID, just by happenstance and serendipity. At Mar-a-Lago, it was February 2020. We were celebrating the launch of my best-selling book, The MAGA Doctrine, which, by the way, is still as good as it was back then, especially now that Trump is running again. And this has been written up. This particular evening was written up in the New York Times and written up in the Washington Post, just because there was so much happening and it was such high stakes. So you had Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro on one table. You had Mike Pence walk through there, look very kind of somber. You had Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle. You had Jared Kushner and Ivanka off to another side. And then Tucker Carlson was there just to try to meet with Trump to say, hey, COVID is going to be the big surprise of 2020. He was there just for that purpose, Lance. And I remember witnessing, and I didn't realize what was happening as it was happening, but we felt like we were on top of the world. The economy was roaring. We just took out Soleimani. Trump was up double digit in the polls, raising record money, the endorsements. He was an unstoppable political force. Do you remember that, Lance?
I do.
It's
the
hard for
juggernaut and the economy. Boom. I mean,
yes.
What could he do?
And that we had a border and there were no new wars and the Ukraine war wasn't underway. I mean, all this just, this country that no longer exists. And the point being, as I think back to that moment, I remember the next morning waking up at 5 a.m. to fly to Los Angeles, and Apple News Alert after Apple News Alert, everything was about COVID. And the day after that, within a week, Lance, we were locked down. Within a week, we were locked down. Within 2 weeks, it was 15 days to slow the spread. Within a month, we had this mail-in ballot nonsense happening. I tell that story because as good as things might look, what do they have planned for us this calendar year? That's why I tell that drama, because it felt like Gatsby, the champagne was flowing, things were terrific. It was just this amazing, all-encompassing moment. And, I hate to not land the plane with the same sort of crescendo that it warrants, Lance, but I don't know what they have planned, but it could be anything from a grid failure to Disease X. It could be third-party candidates, but they are not going to accept the current set of circumstances, Lance. There's going to be a surprise. There will be information warfare. There will be an asymmetrical attack. There will be something that comes out of nowhere that might justify more people to stay at home. I don't want to get into specifics because that's just not helpful. Instead, I can be confident, Lance, that the way things are today will not stand from now to the election. We have too much momentum. We have too much of a following. Our movement is ascendant. It is increasingly popular. Their candidates are crummy. Third-party candidates are hurting them more than us. So your audience better be buckle up, prayerful, vigilant, and stay humble and run through the finish line now to November and be ready for whatever they have planned for us.
Wow. So I remember that scene in Godfather where after the Godfather's funeral there and Michael Corleone's there and then Tom Hagen leans over and he says to him, do you know how they're going to come at you? I remember I was with Steve Bannon and I was doing something at Michael Lindell, one of his events, and I interviewed him. I leaned over to him. I said, hey, do you know how they're going to come at you? And then him and Navarro have these prison sentences, coming at him.
Yep.
And he laughed and he said, yeah. I said, no doubt about it. They're coming at us. I said, and they're going to do it again. They're going to do it at this election. And you know what? I heard Peter Navarro at CPAC. If you guys haven't heard him, you need to listen to him because it ought to make you incensed when you hear scholars and Treasury secretaries and good men that are being put in leg irons on purpose in public when they could have just gone down and reported in. They live a couple of doors down from the FBI and could turn themselves in. The left is out of their mind. You're not dealing with it. The part that drives me crazy is the logic that these guys, like John Maxwell will have, these other guys, that the Democrats are over here, the Republicans are over here, as though they're both the same, and your goal is to make sure Jesus loves everybody equally. And here's what I'm telling pastors, and I just got done doing this in Florida. I said, Jesus loves Democrats and Republicans equally, and he loves all people equally. But you're not discerning the times if you don't recognize that political platforms are based on policies. Yes. And if the policy is slavery or the policy is kill the Jew, it's an evil platform. You have a moral obligation not to be a sycophant for your favorite person on top of the ticket, but to be a voice against the policies and the platform that is dangerous. To be neutral when slavery is on the table will be an embarrassment to you after the Civil War is over. And that's exactly where a lot of pastors need to be thinking right now. If your people look back at you as neutral at a time of crisis in American history because you couldn't discern a platform, look at what the platform for transgender mutilation of children is. Or my daughter-in-law is like, I'm just looking at that baby and it's 6 months. I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the pictures and all that stuff. I'm thinking, can you imagine somebody wanting to go to the 9th month and destroying this life? I want to look at this thing through the lens of reality and say, I can't be neutral when this is the culture that is being formed. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's important to understand that God's law is not equally applied to both party platforms. There's some things I wish the Republicans got better, but let's just go through the issue you talk about. Which side will protect children from medical mutilation? The Republican Party. Which side is the pro-life party? The Republican Party. Which side has borders? The Republican Party. Which side believes that the church will never be deemed non-essential again? The Republican Party. Which side believes that God created male and female? The Republican Party. Hard stop, Lance. Hard stop. There is not a single biblical issue guided by God's law that the Democrat Party embraces. Let me say that again. There is not, if somebody can prove me wrong on that, you're welcome on my program, and good luck, because you better have your Bibles ready. Show me a single plank of the Democrat Party that is consistent with God's law and God's intent for how human beings are to govern themselves and to live.
And I heard this guy on, it's so well put. That's why we're fired up. You got to stay on the line, as firing line there, Charlie. I listened to this guy on Glenn Beck, this pastor, and he said, here's the genius, the serpentine, subtle strategy of the devil. He took abortion, gender, sexuality, border security, and debt, $35 trillion of debt. He said the devil took those themes and he moved them from being moral issues to political planks in the party platform of the Democrat Party. The moment they became wraparound championed by the Democrat Party, they became political, hence in the kind of like, Pavlovian conditioning of the pulpit. If it's political, we don't go there. We focus on the word and on the kingdom. Jesus is the only one. I'm not looking for a president to save me. I'm looking for Jesus. And so all the moral issues that you need clarity in culture on, the pulpit will avoid because they're political. In fact, they're moral issues that have been co-opted by a party on the wrong side of the issue.
That's right. That's right. And it comes down to God's law. And it comes down to the eternal law that is beautifully put in the 66 books of the Bible, and you do not have to look much farther than, let's just say, the Decalogue. The Democrat Party on a daily basis.
Now, what's the Decalogue?
Is violating
just for my people, the Decalogue is
the 10 Commandments.
Thank you.
The 10 Commandments. Yes. And so you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make any graven images, so on and so forth. Honor your mother and father, so may you live long in the land of which you are in. For 6 days you shall work, for 1 day you shall rest, right? You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not cover your neighbor's property. The Democrat Party actively violates several of the 10 Commandments just by existence, whether it be murder, abortion, covetousness. Their entire platform is based on greed and to want the other.
We need to do a program just on thou shalt not covet, because it talks about taking what isn't yours or lusting for what someone else has that you want to get. But we're out of time. I can hardly believe it.
Also the parents one. You can't forget the parents, though. The entire Democrat Party is against parents' rights and strong relationship between kids and parents. Period.
And I might add that they're actually like in Colorado right now. This is so frustrating. I'm working with parents, with mothers who are trying to protect their children from being evangelized by the left in art clubs, in art class, a Skittles class, where the teacher brings in an activist who comes in and gets you to question if you're in the right body at 11 years of age or 12 years of age. And if you're not sure, then maybe you are gender fluid, and maybe you ought to have this wristband on, a rainbow wristband, which makes you queer. Now you're part of it. Now we're going to celebrate the fact that you're finding your identity. By the way, you can't talk to your parents about this. They can't be trusted. Here's the point. They're doing that in the school system in Colorado. Parents are rising up to push back against it. And all that they want to do is we talk about ballot work, right? Or going out and getting some signatures for ballot drives. The left is using it hilariously, or shall I say furiously, on the pro-life issue. They're trying to fight back on pro-life and get everybody to sign the ballots for, your right to your body. So I suggested, well, maybe you guys ought to, in Colorado, have something to protect your kids. Well, the title board, which is controlled by the Democrats, refuses to let them have a ballot. And they refuse, and they're literally resisting the ability of the parents to have a ballot to go out and get other parents to sign that they want to have protection for their children in the school system. To me, that level of sophisticated intentionality in suppressing parents tells me there's a threat in America at a local level. You don't want 4 more years of that, folks. You're running into danger. Mercedes?
Yeah, I know Charlie's got to jump, but I just want to come back to this idea of, there are good pastors out there, and that's why Turning Point Faith is such a vital organization right now, and what they're doing and equipping pastors. So Charlie, I didn't know if you wanted to touch on that. We've got a lot of people watching. They can get some of these resources for their pastors.
Yes.
But go for it.
And we have great pastors.
Yep.
I want to say this. So Charlie, talk about the pastors and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, tpfaith.com. We have created a buffet line of best resources for pastors that want to get engaged in biblical citizenship, guest speakers. We are doing a nationwide screening of the Letter to the American Church that we produced at TPUSA Faith in harmony with Eric Metaxas and all that he is doing. So it's tpfaith.com. You can check it out right now.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Charlie, thank you very much for your time. It's always exciting to have you on and to be able to be with you. I look forward to talking to you some more. God bless you and stay strong.
Thank you.
Well, we're out of time. I can't believe it. Had a great time. Mercedes, thank you very much. Charlie Kirk, thank you very much. We're going to be back again. Actually, we're here every day. You can catch us at lancewallnau.com/podcast, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends. Because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.